little bit. All right. Okay, muting. So again, everyone is on mute by default. You cannot unmute yourself, and we can unmute you during the Q&A time. And to request to speak, you need to use the raise hand feature. And once we unmute you, you may still need to click a pop-up menu to unmute yourself. If you have called in by phone, which I don't think anyone did, but if you call in by phone, you can unmute yourself by dialing in *6 once we unmute you. In terms of video, your camera is off by default, and to ensure adequate bandwidth for this meeting, we request that you to please keep your camera off during the meeting. So just going over a little bit how to use the chat function. If you have a question, during the presentation, please send it via chat. And to send a chat, you can click on the chat little button on the bottom of the menu, and in the to field, change it change the drop down to Corey Pitts, who will be taking care of your monitoring the question in the chat. And once you type in the question, you can just hit send. And in terms of how you raise your hand, if you'd like to speak or to ask a question or make a comment, you can raise your hand. To raise your hand, click the participant at the bottom of the menu, and then click on the blue raise hand button. Then once we'll see your hand raised, and once we call on your name, and we'll unmute you, and then you can click the unmute button, and then you can speak. And if you have dial in by phone, and you have to dial *9. And then finally, to change your view so that you can only see the people with cameras on, which is me, click on the up arrow next to the start video button, select video setting, and make sure the hide non-video participant is checked. That way you can, it will eliminate all the other little black box with name on it. So again, welcome everyone to this North High Street Extension Facility Planning Study virtual public meeting, the first one. I would like to introduce some people. Give me 1 second. Someone's calling me. Oops, okay. So quick introduction. We have Corey Pitts, who is the planning section manager for MCDOT Division of Transportation Engineering. And we also have Mark Terry, who is the section chief for the the Division of Traffic Operation Engineering. He is the traffic study section chief. And we welcome everyone who is here. And at this point, if there's anyone who is from representing any elected official, if you can raise your hand, we would like to recognize you. Anyone? Okay. All right. Again, welcome everyone, and really appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Just to go through the outline really quickly, we're going to talk about the project overview, some of the design considerations, and we're going to talk about the conceptual alternatives that we've put together. We'll talk about alternative analysis, and then the next step, and then at the end, we'll have questions and comment period from which will allow everyone to ask their questions or make a comments regarding this project. Meeting outcomes. So, the goal of this meeting is really to share the conceptual alternatives with the community, collect feedback from the community about this project, and answer any questions from everyone. Oh, we just got a question from Susan Nerlinger. Would you please repeat the titles and affiliation of Mr. Pitt and Mr. Perry? Yes, sure. So Corey Pitts is the planning section manager for Division of Transportation Engineering. And then Mark Terry is from the Division of Traffic Operation and Engineering, and he is the traffic study section chief. All right, so let's talk about the project overview. The project limit is on North High Street from Morningwood Drive to Georgia Avenue. The scope of the study is to look at extending North High Street to Morningwood Drive, and to look at providing pedestrians and cyclists access from Morningwood Drive to North High Street, and identify additional safety improvement needs. This project was in the only master plan which was adopted in 2005. It was included in the fiscal year 20 MCDOT facility planning program. And this project is not funded for final design or construction at this point. It's only up to 35% design. Okay, and then this is the current project milestone schedule. We have done planning and conceptual engineering, which look at the existing conditions, the purpose and need, to develop conceptual alternatives, conduct a traffic analysis, and study the conceptual impact and costs. And then we're actually right in the middle between the conceptual engineering and the council identified recommended alternative, which is our next step. Again, this project is not funded for final design or construction at this point. Some of the design considerations that during this conceptual alternative development is, of course, safety. We want to make sure that whatever we're designing is safe for all users, including pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers. We looked at right-of-way impacts. We looked at the traffic patterns, utility poles, a fire hydrant, trees, drainage and stormwater management, the existing pavement usage, which include parking, and any additional spot improvement within the vicinity of North High Street. Okay, so just to talk a little bit about traffic impact analysis that we've conducted. We looked at the existing traffic patterns, and we conducted traffic movement counts and volume analysis back in January 2020. This is pre-COVID. We have identified that peak hours is between 8 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 5 p.m. And we have we have looked at the level of services, and it's basically a qualitative measure used to relate the quality of motor vehicle traffic services based on the performance measure like vehicle speed, density, and congestion. So basically, if it is a level of service A, it means that it's a free flow where traffic can flow at or above posted limit speed, and motorists have complete mobility between lanes. They can switch lane easily. Where F is where it signifies that it's a force or breakdown flow where there are more demand and capacity. Usually that means it's a traffic jam. And we have also looked at the projected traffic patterns with the extension. We have looked at the local network reviews on trip destination, basically look at what are the major attractions within the vicinity of people using North High Street. And we have determined that on an average, 50 vehicles will be diverted onto North High Street during peak hour if the extension is there. And there would have been minor reduction on the turning volume at the Georgia Avenue and Morningwood intersection. And there would be no change to the volume at Georgia and only Sandy Spring Road intersection. And a little bit more about the traffic impact analysis. We have also conducted crash analysis. We've looked at any reported crash within the vicinity of the project. So we looked at the intersection between Morningwood Drive to the North High Street and Bueller Road intersection. There were 28 reported crashes in the past 5 years on Georgia Avenue, and 25% of the crashes at the intersection with North High Street and Bueller Road. We've also conducted site distance analysis, and we recognize that there are 2 curves on Morningwood Drive that might not have provide enough site distance as it is. And so we have look at different ways of making this work if we are to extend the North High Street to Morningwood Drive. Some of the solution that we have looked at includes lower speed limit to 25 miles per hour, narrower lanes on Morningwood Drive, putting parking restrictions on Morningwood Drive, and maybe a right-in, right-out for the North High Street extension. And lastly, it's the stop control where we put in a stop sign. So these are just ideas. We're not proposing that as of now. Those are just the ways that we can help to eliminate the sight distance issues. So, just talk a little bit about existing conditions on North High Street. The roadway width for North High Street varies between 12 feet to 40 feet, depending on where you are. The closer you are to Georgia Avenue, obviously, is wider. And the existing right-of-way width varies between 30 feet to 80 feet. In terms of access from Morningwood Drive, for pedestrian, there is a stairs, and it is not ADA compliant. For cyclists, there is none, and for drivers, there is none. So, and on North High Street, there's street parking available on both sides. There is a intermittent sidewalk on the south side of North High Street, and the zoning currently it's a mixed use zone. So just to go over the concept that we have put together, most of you probably have seen this on our project website. And so the first alternative that we're proposing is a 11 travel lane on in both directions of North High Street, with a 6-foot sidewalk and the section near Morningwood Drive. And as we get closer, traveling to the east on North High Street towards Georgia Avenue, we're proposing adding an 8-foot parking lane for cars to park, and then a 6-foot sidewalk. So this is the plan the plan view of what I have just described. The yellow shading signifies is a full depth pavement, where the blue signifies the pavement's resurfacing, and the green is the green space. These graded area is the sidewalk. So for this first alternative, we're proposing the sidewalk to be on the south side of North High Street, with parking occasionally on this side, on the south side. And then for alternative 2, this is the master plan typical section. So this is a master plan typical section where there's traveling on both in both directions, 11-foot wide. There's a 10-foot side path on the north side of North High Street, 8-foot sidewalk on the south side of North High Street. And then this is the area near Morningwood Drive. And as we move closer to the east, towards the shopping center, we're proposing adding 8-foot parking on both sides of the street. And again, this is the plan view of what I've just described. Again, the yellow shading signify a full depth pavement, and the blue signifies the resurfacing, and the gray is the sidewalk on the south side, and then this is a 10-foot side path on the north side. I'm just going to talk a little bit about alternative analysis summary. This chart kind of gives us a way to kind of look at these alternatives against what we have out there, which is existing condition when it comes to the impact. So we have looked at utility impacts, on-street parking, tree impacts, number of properties with potential impacts, construction easement costs. These are all estimated at this point. So with the alternative 1, which provides us 11-foot travel lane in both directions and extended through to Morningwood Drive, and a continuous sidewalk on the south side of the street. utility impact we're estimating will be impacting 8 electric pole and 3 light poles. We'll probably be able to provide 9 on-street parking spaces. In terms of tree impacts, we'll probably impact 5 trees. In terms of properties, we'll probably have 7 properties impacted. And the cost-wise is for construction easement is $287,000, and then for the construction cost is approximately $593,000. And for alternative 2, again, there's a 11-foot travel lane in both directions, which extend through Morningwood Drive, with pedestrian facilities and parking spaces on both sides of the street. That will put us into about 11 electric pole and 3 light pole in terms of utility impacts. It will be able to provide 16 on-street parking spaces. When it comes to tree impacts, we're talking about approximately 15 trees. Number of properties with potential impacts increased to 12 properties. Construction easement costs we're estimating at $557,000, and for construction cost we're estimating at $986,000. So for next step, we're here to collect feedbacks from the community through October 31st, and you can submit your feedback through an online comment form, which is also available on the website. You can always email it to me at angel.chang@montgomerycountymd.gov. And we also accept traditional mail if you would like to write to us, and this is the address. Once we collect the feedback from the community, we'll share this with the county planning board, as well as the county council T&E committee. We'll provide them a briefing of what we have looked at, the design that we have, as well as what the community is telling us in terms of what their feedback on this project. And additional design is pending on your feedback. Okay, so, and this is my contact information. We encourage you to reach out and let us know what your thoughts are. So we are going to open it up for questions and comments at this point. You can raise your hand, or we can go ahead and answer some of the questions in the comment box. I believe we have some questions, Corey.
Yeah, so there's a number of questions in the full chat. So I think the first question I see is, what is the specific reason for this project and how will the community benefit?
So this project was, again, was included in the master plan, and it was included in our facility planning program. We have tasks by the council to look at this connection. So it was just part of the master plan recommendation, and we're just look at whether this is feasible, whether it's reasonable to do this. So after tonight's meeting and after we collect everyone's comments, we'll present the findings to the council and have them tell us what to do next. And
so it looks a comment here kind of seeking clarification. The picture that you showed earlier for the crash analysis shows Morningwood, but all the crash analysis is for Georgia Avenue and North High Street.
Yes. Give me 1 second. Let me back up a little bit. Whoop. Yes. So part of what we looked at is how extending North High will impact Georgia Avenue. Also, I know as the existing condition, vehicle cannot turn left from Bueller Road onto Georgia Avenue, but then people can turn from North High Street to turn left onto Georgia Avenue northbound. And so those are where the most crashes are. And we looked at the crashes on Morningwood Drive, and actually there isn't any that has been reported specifically. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Most of the time, these crashes analysis, if the driver didn't feel like they need to call police, and it would not be included in the reported crashes. So, but we did look at everything that is in the vicinity.
I guess, do you want to take some of the raised hands, and then we can come back to some of the questions in the chat?
Sure. Okay, so we'll first start with Ali Jacobus. I have unmuted you, so go ahead.
Actually, I'm her husband. She went to deal with her baby, but we have the same question. My name is Max Haddon. So I've lived in this area for about 3 years. I go by this area all the time. And while I think adding this connection could be very helpful to the area, I do want to emphasize that this is a very dangerous little stretch of road because of the way the road curves and people drive very fast. You can make the speed limit lower all you want. People drive 50, 60 miles an hour sometimes. And sometimes when people are crossing, there are a lot of close calls already. And if you increase cars coming onto the road with almost those blind turns, there's a potential for accidents if you're not doing enough safety. So I really hope that you look at potentially putting an all-way stop if you do create that intersection, and having one of those signs that alerts you that there's going to be a stop sign approaching, because especially where the Goddard School is, that is a very blind turn and people drive very fast there sometimes. And so while I'm in favor of making this change, I think it would be a nice convenience to the community. It's really prefaced on an extreme amount of caution in terms of the safety that would be necessary for cars traveling there.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I think that's very, very helpful for us, because those are the things that we are tasked to look at. While this project just to study the extension itself, we would like to know from the community what are some other spots that is in the vicinity that might need safety improvement as well, since we're studying this area. So that's very helpful. Thank you. And then next we'll have Chris. I have unmuted you. Whoop. What is again? Oh.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So my name's Chris Yafanis. My parents, George and Irene Yafantis, live at 3427 North High Street. I'm not sure. I don't see on the participants any of the other residents of North High Street. So, I guess, I'm sort of here representing my parents, George and Irene, who've been there since 2005, as well as myself, who, I frequent area every day since I see my elderly parents. There's a lot I have to say about this project. I really don't think that the connection makes any sense to connect the road physically with North High Street physically with Morningwood, because Morningwood is like, I think Max Jacobus said, is kind of like a very fast street. It's kind of has blind turns. And so if someone were to turn left onto Morningwood or left onto North High Street from Morningwood, like, people are going so fast on Morningwood that I just can't see how like that would happen. I think that's just very dangerous, number one. Number two, there are residents who live on the street. So my parents are on one side of the street. In the picture, it's the one with the house that's a little further away. It was built in 2005, so it is the newest home on the street. But both of the homes to the right and left are residential. There are also other residential properties on the, I guess, the north side of North High Street. And the alternative 2 would be a total disaster, because alternative 2 would have the sidewalk, you know, it would have basically 15 feet into the yards currently, because that's the easement. And so it would be, you know, the road and the sidewalk and all of that would be very close to the homes. And not so much my parents' home, but the other older established homes that were built closer, I think, to the easement, sort of, you know, in the 1960s. The other thing I want to say is just about, you know, the traffic, North High Street traffic. The enormous amount of traffic that's on North High Street is not going to the Goddard School, which maintains a small, you know, parking lot for their staff. It's not going to the residents. It's all going to the McDonald's or the Exxon Mobil that's at the intersection of Georgia and North High Street. And as far as traffic is concerned in and around that area, there has been tremendous amount of traffic, I would say, in the last few years due to the opening of this Dunkin' Donuts in what used to be a bank, used to be Santander Bank, that's on Georgia. And so there are frequent backups for people wanting to buy donuts in the morning. I mean, this is a reality, right? That people who live in that area deal with. And so I was very interested in your study that, you know, that would have no change, you know, connecting the two would have no changes to traffic patterns. I found that just to be astounding. So in my view, and in conclusion, you know, I'm really for the no build option. I think money can be spent elsewhere in the county. I think that the residents to the right and left of our home on North High Street are really not in favor of the increased traffic. Yeah, that's my mother in the background saying none of them. You know, Margaret Joyce lives to the, I think left, I'm sorry, yes, left of our home. And then Sonia Carry On lives to the right. And I don't see them on tonight, but we've spoken to them informally, and I think that Margaret Joyce has sent in comments to you, Ms. Chang, and you know, they're just the residents of the street are just opposed to the connection, to the physical car connection, right? I mean, improvements can be made definitely for pedestrians, like with the non-ADA compliant walkway and something of that nature, and definitely resurfacing the road, which looks like it hasn't been resurfaced in a very long time. But in terms of connecting the road, it just would seem like a very redundant sort of project, because, you know, you can just turn right on Morningwood, or you can, you know, and you'd end up in the same place rather than just cut through using North High Street to Morningwood. So I just don't see how cars would benefit, you know, from an improvement. So the only improvement I see is, you know, more accidents definitely on Morningwood, and Georgia, and just more increased traffic and people using it as a cut through. So already, I want to say, I'm sorry, I'm talking for a while, but I want to say one last thing, which is that already there's a lot of traffic that goes down the street thinking that it is connected to Morningwood, makes a sort of a U-turn in sort of a parking bay that's for the Flourish. It's like it's counseling business, and they turn around. And so already you have traffic that's sort of going down because they think that it's a shortcut and that, you know, they can get somewhere quicker, and they make a U-turn, and it's just silly. It's just total silliness. And so, you know, I'm for the no build option, and that's, you know, that's what I propose. So that's all.
Thank you so much for your comments. And then next we'll have Mr. Alan McFarland. I have unmuted you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I want to echo the sentiments of the previous speaker. I'm also for the no-build option. We live on Homeland Drive, which is in the neighborhood to the north of Morningwood, and we walk our kids to school and at Olney Elementary, and we cross over Morningwood near this proposed intersection, which is why I've been so concerned about it. And particularly noting that you said, you know, the traffic is one of the peaks for traffic is 8 to 9 in the morning. Well, you know, 8:30, that's when we're crossing. And I would be particularly worried about, you know, vehicles turning from the right, from North High Street onto Morningwood. So to me, the right in, right out, it doesn't really help, because that's exactly where the right turns are exactly what I'd be worried about. And as the previous speaker said, you know, cars go pretty fast down there, and I'm kind of skeptical, even if you lower the speed limit, that's going to do a whole lot. You know, I agree, like anything you could do if this happened to slow things down, you know, would be helpful. I think a three-way stop would be good, or at the least like a crosswalk across Morningwood. It seems like the focus has really been on what you guys want to do on High Street, you know, but our concern, or part of our concern, is about, you know, the challenges on Morningwood. And then, you know, to just look at this and say, well, there's going to be a minor reduction in traffic. Like, what's the benefit? There's a minor reduction in traffic. I think, according to your chart, there's still going to be a traffic jam at the light at 97 and Morningwood. You know, pedestrian access already exists. You know, I've used it. You could make it a ramp instead of stairs to make it ADA compliant. In terms of cyclists, I never see any cyclists around there. I don't know what that would be helping. You know, so in general, I would say, you know, I'm opposed to it. If it does go forward, I would want to see like a three-way stop, or at least a crosswalk. But, you know, I can say personally, I'm planning to write to the county council, Councilwoman Nancy Navarro, who represents us. And I would urge anybody else in this meeting who feels strongly as well to contact Councilwoman Navarro. So thanks.
Thank you. All right. So, and then next we'll have Mr. Jim Smith. I have unmuted you.
Hello, thank you.
Hi, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Chang and Mr. Pitts and Mr. Terry. So I'm Jim Smith. I'm the chair of the Olney Town Center Advisory Committee. I can answer one of the earlier questions about, you know, what instigated this this study. A few years ago, our committee identified, you know, in the master plan, the provision for, you know, additional street connections that would help circulate traffic in and around the town center. And we also had our eye on the high priority pedestrian crossing, which is at Georgia Avenue and Morningwood, to relieve some of the congestion traffic at that intersection. But we put forward the idea for this design study to go into the capital improvement program. We approached GOCA, who also endorsed the project to go into the capital improvement program. So the reason, other reasons for this include the master plan calls for only retaining its semi-rural nature. And one of the things that you need to do to preserve a semi-rural nature, you know, a standalone small community like Olney, without getting something like, you know, Rockville Pike, where you have development along a major corridor like Georgia Avenue, is when there is development pressure, you need to have a place where developers can develop. If they can't develop in a town center, then they tend to propose their developments along the corridor. So one of the proposals, one of the things we saw was a developer who proposed, assembled a couple properties at the end of North High back in 2007. And then came into the obstacle of realizing that if they wanted to go through with their development, they would have to connect the street at the end of North High because of the traffic concerns. You couldn't have just a one-way street that would service that. All of North High Street is in the business district in Olney. And so our committee identified it as that would be a good public project because it would enable future development. It would actually stop providing a negative incentive to developers who wanted to consider those parcels. And it would, through development to highest and best use, it would provide better tax base in the county as another consideration. So that's why we in the Olney Town Center Advisory Committee proposed it and got GOCA's endorsement on it as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Angel.
Yes, go ahead.
Can we clear out a little bit of the question queue that's building up, and then we'll jump back into.
Sure.
So I had a question here. What is a write-in, write-out?
A write-in, write-out basically is a treatment at an intersection from a minor road to a major road, where the vehicle coming out can only turn right from the major road into the minor road, and from the minor road into the major road. So in this case, it will be people can only turn right from Morningwood onto North High, and people from North High can only turn right onto Morningwood.
Great, thanks. Second question, does the plan envision some kind of traffic control at the intersection of North High and Morningwood, whether that be a stoplight, stop signs, and where, I guess, could it be or where would it be located?
We haven't looked directly into a specific traffic control at that intersection yet, but we will look into it in terms of how we can make sure that this intersection would be safe. What other traffic devices we can install to improve safety.
Great. Question about, could you better define what tree impact means? Does that mean that you're cutting down trees that currently exist, or is it other impacts?
Yes, so when it comes to tree impacts, it means that we might have to cut down the tree. But at this stage we're at planning design right now. So we have a very conservative in terms of the amount of impact that we have, so that we want to make sure that we account for any potential impact. So that number could potentially go down as the design moves forward. And if when we have any tree impact, we'll also, by law, are required to plant more trees. So I believe the rate is for every tree that we impact, we're required to plant 3 more trees.
Thanks. We'll do one more and then we'll jump back into Q&A. Alternative okay. 1 does not show a sidewalk on the north side of the street, which currently does have some sidewalk adjacent to the McDonald's. I guess, could you provide some clarification about whether any of the existing sidewalks on the north would be impacted?
Yes, so the north side of the street for Alternative 1, I'm thinking you're talking about this stretch around the McDonald's. This stretch will be remaining. I think there is a dead end of sidewalk on this side where my arrow is pointing next to the auto shop. So the idea is to provide a sidewalk on the south side and allow people to safely cross mid-block, and a crosswalk will be striped here. And from here, pedestrian can use this side of the sidewalk. So this sidewalk will remain as it is.
Great, thanks. We'll hold on to some of the rest of these and you can go back to the Q&A.
Okay, thank you. So next we'll have Miss Susan Nerlinger. I have unmuted you. Ooh, let's try this again. Oh.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My name is Susan Nerlinger. I live in the Homeland Village community. Our property line is maybe about 100 yards down Morningwood Drive from the proposed location where North High Street would enter Morningwood. I've lived in the neighborhood for 16 years. I'm with the people who support a no-build option, and I'm against both alternatives 1 and 2. I drive east on Morningwood to Georgia Avenue almost every day, as do most people who live in Homeland Village and the residential communities beyond it. I also walk along Morningwood to Georgia sometimes to access businesses. It has great pedestrian access to Georgia Avenue. The location of the proposed intersection would be poorly situated just past a curve in Morningwood. Other people have mentioned this problem, so that if cars were to be stopped on Morningwood at the intersection of North High, they would be in danger of getting hit from behind by cars coming down Morningwood from Georgia Avenue, whose drivers would not see the stopped cars. There's no indication in the plans for the 2 alternatives for what kind of traffic control system would be put in place, a stoplight or a stop sign. But if traffic were to be stopped on Morningwood at the intersection, it would be very dangerous. The proposed intersection would simply feed traffic from Georgia Avenue onto Morningwood Drive via High Street. There's already an intersection at Georgia and Morningwood. It's perfectly adequate for channeling traffic from the neighborhoods along Morningwood onto Georgia and from Georgia onto Morningwood. Amount of traffic that can be accommodated by that intersection is not a problem at this time. I don't see any need to extend North High Street onto Morningwood. The information made available to the public doesn't disclose why this project has been proposed, what is the nature of a problem it's supposed to solve, or the improvement it's supposed to offer. The stretch of Georgia Avenue between the intersection of Georgia and Morningwood and Georgia and Highway 108 is already overdeveloped. There are 2 entrances for drive-through fast food outlets. This has been mentioned before: Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's on Georgia Avenue. And in the morning and evening, lines of cars for these drive-through lanes extend down Georgia Avenue, blocking 1 lane of traffic. Also, where North High Street intersects with Georgia Avenue, there's no stoplight or stop sign. At Georgia Avenue has 4 lanes and a median strip. You can see that on your overview maps. So it's a little used roadway, except to make right turns and left turns off and onto Georgia Avenue. You wouldn't want to cross Georgia Avenue on High Street because there's no stoplight there, and getting across 4 lanes of dense traffic on Georgia Avenue just is generally not feasible. So if the goal is to funnel more traffic off Georgia Avenue and onto Morningwood, it's an ill-conceived goal, in my opinion. The Homeland Village community manages to retain its quiet residential character in spite of its proximity to Georgia Avenue, and funneling more cars through would only have a deleterious effect on that. So those are the reasons why I oppose it. And I just wanted to say the idea that you would limit parking on Morningwood is a real problem. The parking lots, I'm on the board of directors of the Homeland Village Community Association. I'm not speaking for the board, I'm only speaking for myself. But the parking lots in Homeland Village are full to capacity, and a lot of people depend on being able to park along the street on Morningwood. So that parking availability is very important to the community. So I'll end my comments there.
Thank you. All right. Next we'll have Lori.
Hi, my name is Lori Nicholson, and I've been in touch with you, Ms. Chang. Thank you for hosting this tonight. And I actually participated or attended the Only Town Center Advisory Committee meeting. I guess that was about a week ago. And my major concern is that I understand why the businesses on High Street want a connection, It's probably difficult for people going to those businesses already, although I understand it's probably difficult for the residents on High Street already as well. But Morningwood is more like a 1.5 lane road as it is. We turn off of Georgia onto Morningwood, and there's immediately a lot of stopping and going with all the business parking lots for the first block or two. And then we get a lot of traffic coming from Olney Elementary School because they don't actually go around to Queen Mary. They, the drop off and pick up at the beginning of the day and the end of the school day often takes place on Morningwood Drive, and the kids cross when they're attending school in person. They cross the playing fields to exit the onto Morningwood instead of exiting the school in the front of the school onto Queen Mary. It's just, it already feels so dangerous to me. There are parents with kids in strollers and dogs on leashes and kids running out of the playing fields from Olney Elementary School. And I feel like it's a high alert sort of situation already, because I want to make sure that there are no accidents on that street. I have actually been in one of the worst accidents in my life on Morningwood Drive. A Bob's Furniture delivery truck driver was in front of us. We were in the portion of Morningwood Drive that's right after the blind curve. You come around Goddard, and then there's the blind curve there. Pedestrians scatter as cars come zooming around that blind curve too fast. And then you enter the Homeland Village area where there's parking on both sides of the street. And my daughter, who's 16 years old and learning to drive, has said that there's a special place in heaven for people who park on Morningwood Drive and tuck in their side view mirrors so that we can actually get through, because we do have a minivan and it's like a 1.5 lane road. We can't actually get through there if another car is coming without crossing into their side of the lane. So we have to go, it's very, very slow. There are a lot of large contractor trucks there, and the Bob's Furniture delivery truck tried to turn left into the townhouses right after that area, missed the turn. There's no place for him to turn around. There's cars on both sides of me, and there was a car behind me, and the 18-wheeler put the truck in reverse and crashed back into me, and there was nowhere for me to go, and came about 1/2 inch from going through my windshield. There is a police report on file. It was in October of 2014. When you get through that, then people fly through the three-way stop at Morningwood and Headwaters Drive. I wish everybody observed those stop signs, but a lot of people seem to take them more as a suggestion. I believe that Morningwood is meant to be a fairly small residential access road into Homeland Village and Olney Oaks. I live in Olney Oaks, right off of, very close to the intersection of Morningwood and Headwaters Drive. I'm on Headwaters Lane, which is a cul-de-sac right off of Headwaters Drive there. And it's meant to be just for the folks who live in those communities, but it's used as an alternative route for anybody who wants to get to the western portion of Olney. Instead of going up to the intersection of Georgia and 108 and waiting to turn left at that light, my guess is that a lot of people are cutting through on Morningwood to get down to Cashel and Bowie Mill, because there's quite a bit of traffic on that road for the number of us who actually live in these couple of subdevelopments. So even without any building taking place, I'm already really concerned about the safety on Morningwood. It is shocking to me that we haven't heard of pedestrian accidents on this road, because it's very, I almost find it easier to deal with the spur intersection on 270 because I'm expecting that amount of traffic. There's clearly not that amount of traffic on Morningwood, but the amount of traffic and pedestrian traffic and the speeds that are on that road are way out of proportion to what the road is designed to handle, it feels like. I'm wondering if there's been any discussion about maybe connecting High Street and Morningwood closer up near the businesses that already exist on Morningwood. There's a parking lot behind the Backyard Naturalist, a parking lot with the Chinese restaurant, a big open parking lot, which I think serves the office buildings on the other side of Morningwood, and then the parking lot for Goddard School. And it seems like getting traffic off of Morningwood before getting down into the residential area would be a much safer option. But I don't know how that would work from a functional perspective as far as connecting the two streets higher up on Morningwood, closer to Georgia Avenue, in other words. But I'm not sure that a three-way stop, we've already talked about the blind curve after you come around from the Goddard School to where the High Street extension would be. I'm not sure that a three-way stop would be sufficient, since the three-way stop at Headwaters Drive and Morningwood is already, I saw somebody blow through that three-way stop and not even slow down yesterday. Usually you see people kind of tap the brakes and slow down, but maybe not come to a complete stop. And then there are, of course, cars that do come to a complete stop there, but there are already a lot of safety issues on this residential road before extra traffic is put onto it. So I just wanted to let you know there has been an accident. I can speak from personal experience on Morningwood. That was our car, which was totaled, and 3 of us injured in the accident. We were hit hard enough that my daughters had seatbelt strap marks that were visible on their chests following the accident. So even though we were stopped and the police report said that the driver of the truck was at fault because you can't drive backwards on a road, it was a pretty serious, actually. So just wanted to get all of that out there and ask the question, is there any other way? There is a three-way stop at Headwaters Drive and Morningwood Drive. All three, the traffic moving in all directions. On Headwaters Drive stops at Morningwood, and on Morningwood in each direction stops at Headwaters Drive. So anyway, I wanted to see if there are other alternatives to get traffic off the road before coming into the residential area. I too am leaning towards a no build option, but even with no build, I feel like there are safety issues on Morningwood. And if there is going to be a build, can we do it in a way that makes Morningwood safer and maybe gets traffic off the road before entering the residential section?
Thank you for sharing, Lori.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next we'll have Kathleen Donodeo. Hi, Kathleen. Kathleen?
At work.
Oh, there you
Hear
go.
me now? Sorry, my
Yes.
headphones weren't working there. I'm here as the chair of the Transportation Committee for GOCA, and we wanted to reiterate GOCA's support for the extension. We do think that this is an essential element of the grid structure that GOCA's been promoting for years. And it should take some pressure off of that unsignalized intersection, which is a scary intersection to go through at High Street and Bueller and 97. I wanted to just give a couple of observations, and I don't live right over there. I live in Hallowell, right off Prince Philip, but I bike and ride and pushed a stroller around the town center for years. And I have ridden down that road on my bike and then picked up my bike and carried it down the stairs. So that may be one reason why, whoever it was who mentioned not seeing bikers over there, that may be one reason why you're not seeing them. But I don't think that putting the extension there would increase the traffic on Morningwood in the residential areas, especially if it's a right in, right out. What it might do is you might have people coming northbound, say you wanted to go to the McDonald's. If I were coming northbound, I would rather make that left onto Morningwood and then make the right onto High Street rather than go through the traffic of trying to make that northbound left turn onto High from Georgia Avenue. So you might have some more traffic there. If you're going southbound on Georgia and you were going to make the right onto Morningwood, you would have the option of making the right onto High Street, but there's no reason you would do that unless you were going to High Street or you were going to go down Morningwood anyway. So I don't think it would increase traffic there. What it would do, and I'm going to butcher your name probably, but Ifantis said, you know, that it seems like a redundant project. In a way, that's kind of one of the points of it, because the redundancy there gives you options. So if Dunkin' Donuts is totally backed up, you can get, and you need to get back to Morningwood after dropping your kids off at school or something, you can head southbound on Georgia, say, oh, the Dunkin' Donuts line is all backed up, I'm going to turn onto High Street instead. If there's an accident at the intersection with Morningwood, there's an option to get into the neighborhood. So, I mean, that's, from a traffic perspective, one of the points of having a grid structure is that there are lots of different possible routes, and it spreads the traffic out depending on, you know, what's going on in that structure. I do think, however, that that one of the things that this project seems to have uncovered is a lot of issues with the safety on Morningwood. And I've seen the school drop off there and how crazy that is as well. I totally agree with you. And so maybe the possibility is that this becomes a way to slow people down on Morningwood. I get what you're saying, that, you know, you can't just put the connection there and hope everyone's going to be reasonable and slow down and assume that everyone's going to, you know, go with their better angels, because it won't happen. But maybe with some speed humps and then a sign saying there's a stop sign coming up and then the stop sign, you know, that kind of thing. If you build a whole stretch where you just say, this is a slow piece of road, there's people going in and out all over, it might end up being a net benefit all the way along that stretch. So that's really what I was thinking on that one. And I also strongly support the pedestrian and bike connections there, because especially given the horrible state of the sidewalks along Morningwood, I would much rather, and that's why I biked down High Street and carried my bike down rather than try to ride on either on Morningwood where there's no shoulder or on the 2-foot wide sidewalks practically that are there. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then next we have Ali Jacobus. Yes, Ali?
Hi, again, sorry, this is Ali's husband, Max Eden.
Hi, Max.
I forgot to make 2 more points that I wanted to make. I don't know if this is within the scope of the project, but I do think that there's some convenience. So I live in Homeland Village, and there is some convenience to being able to turn left onto North High Street from Morningwood to currently access Autograves Body Shop, the McDonald's, the Exxon station, whatnot. But if part of this could also be to make it's so that you could go from the parking lot that Autograves Body Shop has, open it up to the shops that are the restaurants that are behind it better. So you know, there's a Wasabi Zen, the Mannequin P. There's some restaurants there that commercial area could really benefit from the easier access from the communities from Morningwood to North High Street through that parking lot. So I think if you do move forward with this project, you could get better benefits out of it if that's also looked as part of this. Because right now, I don't remember if those parking lots connect, but they do. It's not convenient the way it is and not an obvious option. Additionally, if you do move forward with this, I forgot to mention before that, please, if it's possible, factor in that there are school bus stops for, I think, definitely high school kids, I'm pretty sure middle school kids too, very close to where this proposed intersection is, kind of closer to where there's currently also a Montgomery County bus stop. And particularly in the winter, particularly early in the morning when it's dark and the roads can be slippery, whatever kind of, if this does increase traffic along Morningwood, or however safety is looked at for this intersection, if that can just be factored into maybe when you're looking at light posts or lighting or whatever, to make sure that those kids, when they're waiting for the bus early in the morning, the winter when it's dark, that they're safe as well. And also, sorry, and then that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Max. All right. Next, we have Ms. Helen Rosenheim.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm also on the Olney Town Center Advisory Committee, In the past, I served on the 2005 Alney Master Plan Advisory Group, and actually, I think the one before that also. So I kind of want to add to what Jim said about one of the goals of the master plan for the town center was to create a better network of roads. And as Kathleen Donadeo had mentioned, to allow more options in being able to maneuver around in the town center area. And also the master plan, North High Street began largely as a residential street. And as development has expanded around the town center as envisioned by the plan, a large number of the residences on North High Street have been converted to business and commercial uses. And because they're in the town center, that kind of development was what was envisioned or anticipated for that area. And the master plan talks about the possibility of assemblages of properties. And as Jim mentioned, several people have made attempts to do that, but because of the cost of building this connection, none of them have been able to move forward. So so it would help develop that more in terms with what was envisioned in the master plan. And Kathleen Donadeo said a lot of what I was going to say better than I could say it. So I would like to support her observations about the improvements it would have on the flow of traffic and eliminating some of the need for people to always go onto George Avenue to access the businesses and stores on that street. And I personally would support alternative 2, only because we don't know what kind of development might be possible with assemblages of properties. And the current situation has already prevented people from being able to develop that area. And I would hate down the road for us to not think big enough now while we're doing this so that we don't limit the possibilities for development in that area in the future if we're going to go ahead and build the road. That's all.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. We are going to clear some of the question that we got through the chat. Corey?
Yeah, so there's a question about the traffic analysis. Do the 50 vehicles that were diverted during the peak hour reflect a right-in, right-out condition, or a full access intersection as it was modeled?
So the 50 vehicle diverted is modeled after with the assumption that people would be able to make a left turn from eastbound Morningwood onto eastbound North High Street. Yes. So that's the assumption that we make.
Okay.
Yep.
A question about the topography, which I think a number of people have already commented on a little bit, but has there been any studies of the profile of the road and how North High would tie into Morningwood?
Yes, so we did a topographic survey, and we have run the modeling for this potential extension, and what it's shown as the LOD limit of disturbance is the extent of gradings that we are modeling, that we have modeled based on the tie-in, the topographic survey that we got.
Great. Comment here that someone fully supports the decrease in the speed limit to 25 miles per hour, and actually proposes that would extend the entire length of Morningwood Drive all the way to Cashel. comment about crashes would occur from people turning left from North High onto Georgia because of the cross section of Georgia being a 4-lane road and how busy it is. Let's see. Question, will you modify the intersection of Maryland 97 and High Street? Were any limits to turning movements considered at this intersection?
At this point, we're not looking in terms of physically modifying that intersection. However, we have looked into limiting the turning movement at this intersection. Part of the crash analysis has to review that there are quite a bit of conflict at that intersection, and even though most people are not attempting to make that left turn, with the very few that have done that, some of them has resulted in the crash. So yes, we will look into limiting turning movement at that intersection.
All right, I guess if you want to go back to the Q&A.
Okay.
We'll come back.
Next, we have Miss Carolyn Knight. Hello.
Hi.
Oh,
I'm with the Olney Oaks Homeowners Association, a little bit farther down beyond Homeland Village, and I was the one that made the comment about limiting the speed to 25 miles an hour all the way down Morningwood. I've been here 35 years, and there was no cut-through traffic in the beginning because Morningwood did not connect to Georgia Avenue 35 years ago, although it was in the plan, and it did not connect to Cashel. And the only way to connect into Morningwood was either through Queen Elizabeth Drive or Headwaters, each of those coming off of 108. And once those two directions were opened up, our street, which I always thought of as, like people have said, as being primarily residential, really became a cut through for people going over as far as Olney Mill to get to that development, which is quite large, rather than going through the center intersection within Olney. And that traffic, of course, increases in the morning and in the evening. And we do have buses, county buses, ride-on buses coming through here, as well as the school buses. So slowing the traffic in general would be a good idea. And I know from several presentations I've heard over the years from the police, when they survey speeders, and of course we want to blame the speeding on the cut-through people who don't live here, but when they do these surveys and they pull people over, what they usually find is it's the local residents who are speeding, not the people who are cutting through necessarily. And as far as the three-way stop at Headwaters and Morningwood, it's our own residents in our own neighborhoods who are often flying through those or just pausing and looking rather than actually stopping at those intersections. I would support a three-way stop if High Street is connected to Morningwood with lots of signage saying that there is a three-way stop. And I would support being able to turn both right and left. For many people in my neighborhood, if you need to go north and south on Georgia, you go through the intersection straight so that you can go west or east in the community. But we do have times that we would like to go to Graves Auto or to Dr. Matson's orthodontia program or the McDonald's. And in order to get there, you have to go rather circuitously. And the best way is to go north on Headwaters, right on 108, south on Georgia Avenue, and then come into those on the right. I object when people try to turn across Georgia Avenue into or out of that intersection with High Street. It's not only dangerous, but it just slows up all the different transactions people are trying to make. There are other ways to go to avoid making left turns. It even saves gas if you make 3 right turns instead of 1 left turn. I don't think, though, that it increases cut-through traffic. The people who are cutting through on Morningwood are coming from, like, again, Olney Mill, coming through Morningwood, hitting Georgia Avenue, turning south, headed to work, or perhaps going farther east, I'm not sure. And the reverse is true in the evening. I don't see any incentive for people who are coming southbound on Georgia to cut into High Street, to connect to Morningwood, to connect to Oatland Village or Cashel or Bowie Mill. I don't think that's something that's, because you can already turn right on 108, then turn at the light on Queen Elizabeth or Bowie Mill, and you don't have to turn across traffic without a light. So I'm not sure that that would be true. I think it does provide better access to all of those businesses that are there, and I think we can expect a few more businesses there in the future. But anyway, that's it. The only other thought I had, I was unaware, because I don't travel along there in the morning, but I was unaware that people were dropping off children for Olney Elementary School on the right, in the right lanes there, and having them take the path through the woods that is part of school property to go to the school. And it would seem, since that is school property and adjacent to it is some HOA property, housing, not HOA, Housing Opportunities Commission property, also part of the county, that there could be some lanes created there for school drop-off that would not impede traffic on Morningwood Drive. I think that could be widened. Otherwise, it's just scrubby brush. It's not even a true woods there. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. All right. Next, we have Chris DeFantis. Mr. Chris DeFantis. Oh,
Yes.
there you go.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a follow-up point about something regarding the economics of the project, and as well as the sort of development element that has been discussed, I think, by several folks representing the Olney Town Center Advisory and the GOCA. It's about the 2005. I think it's important to look at this project and say, a lot of people in and around this area keep asking why now and why. And, one of the reasons has been to connect the grid and to concentrate development. But it's also important to note the context of the time that has elapsed. So it's been roughly 15 years since the 2005 Olney master plan. And in 2005, the economy was doing, very, very well, especially real estate development. And there was a developer, as Mr. Smith alluded to, who tried to assemble the properties, the residential properties, and then convert them into commercial. And so one of the largest parcels was actually undeveloped land. It was actually on the south side of High Street, where the Goddard School is now. And it's actually where the parking lot for the Goddard School is, as well as the actual Goddard School itself. The property to the right of it, which is now a Flourish counseling center, it basically went into foreclosure first by that developer who tried to do it. And then the property across the street, which is next to my parents' home, it also went into foreclosure. And then, and so at the time of 2008 and 2009, what had been this very noble idea to sort of, spur development into the town center had become, for the residents of North High Street, a blight. And so when the home was finally sold off, the one to the right, and this is on the north side of North High Street, to a very nice multi-generational family, we were delighted. And when the Flourish Counseling Center was set up, in the home across the street, we were delighted. And when the Goddard School was built, we were also delighted. But the thing about the concentrating development is that the Goddard School really was like the keystone of this all. So now that it's been built, and it's a fairly recent, school, it's a new school. And it has its main access on Morningwood, and it has its staff parking lot on North High Street. I just feel that, given the age of that school building and just the size of it, as well as that Flourish Counseling Center that's next to it, has really just diminished the amount of sort of development potential of the south side of North High Street. And I just feel like that is just a much longer term sort of consideration that if you really want to develop North High Street, it would be on the existing residential properties on the north side, which my parents are living and the other residents are living. And we really just think that if this plan goes through and there is a build option, that it would just be another sort of experience like the experience of 2008, where we have to live with construction and noise and sort of a hassle. And we're not anti-development. Like I think development is great. I do. I'm in the construction business myself, but I think that it's when it's smart and it makes sense and the economics make sense. And in this case, especially on the south side of North High Street, the economics don't make sense, and it won't make sense for a very long time until somebody decides to demolish the Goddard School and the Flourish Counseling Center to consolidate all the properties in and around North High Street. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And then next we have Mr. Alan McFarland. Oh, there you go.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to reiterate what Chris was saying. I mean, the idea that we're going to proceed with this project because of what a developer wanted in 2007 is very strange to me. I think we're in a different economic context at this point. I mean, we can't even keep the storefronts filled in the shopping centers at this point, and we're going to be supposedly accommodating additional development there. I don't really understand that. And this is a project that is going to cost up to $1 million. That's quite a bit of money. Carolyn Knight said she doesn't think that there's going to be people cutting through, and I don't agree with that. I mean, there's already folks that are trying to avoid the light at 97 and 108 and 97 and Morningwood that will cut down Headwaters and over Morningwood to skip those two lights. So the idea that folks aren't going to be cutting through there, I don't agree with. I also didn't realize when you had the list of the trees that meant we were cutting down trees. So, supposedly this is to keep the semi-rural nature of our community, but we're cutting down trees. This is very strange to me. And I guess we're going to plant trees somewhere else. Another point is that we just built a sidewalk on the north side of Morningwood like 2 years ago. That's going to get ripped up now. So that's very strange as well. It seems like the folks who are on this, Only Town Center Planning Committee are the ones who are in favor of it. And the folks who actually, live in the area and know that it's already a dangerous area are the ones who are concerned about it. And the idea that this is what we're going to spend $1 million on is kind of strange to me. I did want to also, one more point, just say that I did think that Lori had potentially a good idea. I think if you connected High and Morningwood over where she was saying, closer to that Chinese restaurant and the Goddard School, I think that would make more sense, and it would certainly have at least less of an impact in terms of pedestrian safety and the kids crossing. So thanks for letting me speak again.
Thank you so much. All right, Corey, do we have more questions in the chat?
Yeah, just a couple here. Question about what the probability that this project will happen, and then a follow-up comment. If the probability is high, let's think bigger and fix Morningwood's safety concerns, which I think we've heard, a number of people comment on. So I guess to address the first question, Angel.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the beginning, this project is not funded for final design or construction at this point. And so in terms of probability, nothing is happening beyond the preliminary design. I don't know if you want to add anything, Corey. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
This is Dan Sheridan with
hi, Dan.
DOT also. So yes, Angel's correct, and there's no funding beyond this. It would have to compete for, just like every other transportation project, for final design and construction. The purpose of this is to get a good cost estimate, and so that it can compete in the next CIP budget, which happens every 2 years. We put together a 6-year budget every 2 years. And so we don't make the decision on what project gets funded or not. That's both the county executive and the county council makes the final say on what gets funded. So we can't really comment on the probability of it other than, what it would cost.
Thank you, Dan.
And that's really it from a question standpoint. I'll be sure to save the chat that contains a number of comments for you so that you can compile that as part of the audio commentary. Yep,
that was very helpful. And if there isn't any more questions, that's it for tonight. So feel free to, again, submit your comments to us, whether it's through the online comment form on the website, or you can email directly to me. So thank you again for everyone's participation. We really appreciate you taking our time and share your thoughts with us. We really, really appreciate that. So thank you so much. And I am gonna sign off. Thanks again.